Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, where every day I talk to a different guest that could be located anywhere in the world and talk about how technology is either making our lives easier or transforming entire industries. One of the big things I love about recording this daily tech podcast is I get to speak with people from all over the world. And yes, I take it for granted living here in the UK that everyone will speak English, but being able to speak with people about how they're transforming their lives, their countries and their cities through technology is a wonderful thing. And today's episode is a great example of that. I'm going to chat with Hanna Mazzetti, who's waiting for me in a coffee shop in Stockholm, Sweden, where we're going to tear down any language barriers and learn all about some incredibly cool technology and what she's doing with Moby. And like I said, I know we also have people listening all over the world, but I think we're all sharing a very similar problem at the moment. For example, traditional retailers continue to ignore the threat of online stores, and when they did eventually embrace digital, they did it all wrong and actually made it impossible to speak with anyone as they communicated with their audience using generic email templates from an auto do not reply email address. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but shouldn't an email be a dialogue rather than just a monologue? So when I recently came across a company called Moby, who are on a mission to bring back local retail but using technology, I had to find out more. And they're doing that by finding a solution to that last 5-mile problem. And actually make shopping convenient again in remote areas, as well as in cities. Previously, they've beta tested the Moby Alpha and mobile and staffless retail unit. And their latest invention is Moby PSI, the first off-the-grid standalone retail pod. You just stock it and let it work its magic, whether that be in Palo Alto or in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And best of all, the only thing the retailer needs is to stock it. Payment, inventory, security, all that is completed in the cloud. Now, I think it's a great concept and wanted to find out more about it. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Stockholm in Sweden so we can speak with Hanna Mazzetti and we're going to learn all about Moby. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Hanna Mazzetti and I'm a Swede who is working on a staffless store system. We actually started something called Moby 2 years back, and it's the first staffless and mobile store that is, it's on the market right now.
Fantastic. And I did first hear about Moby back in 2017 and actually wrote an article about you guys on the Next Web. And I remember it just reminded me of something like in the film Blade Runner. And you recently released the first off-the-grid standalone staff-free retail pod that can be powered by solar panels. So I will add a video to the blog post that accompanies this episode, just so everyone listening can visualize exactly what to expect from Moby. But can you just offer a bit of an overview of exactly what it is and the kind of problems that you're solving?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, you can think of it like any other store. It's just that it's staffless and it can be put everywhere. So it doesn't have to be connected to the grid. It can be anywhere on the countryside, and we can even make it mobile, which means actually that we will solve a few issues. One of them is something that is known about amongst retailers, like as the last mile issue. Like it's not really cost efficient to drive like 1 mile extra just to deliver cheap goods like a packet of milk, and we would solve that since our store can drive out to the countryside, stand there for a whole day, and it will be both the logistic systems and the storage place at the same time, and it can also deliver goods.
Fantastic. Now, I've got to ask, though, I mean, what's the story behind Moby? I'd love to know more about the inspiration behind it and how you got where you are today.
Yeah, okay, so it's a long story, but let's say that it started with both me and Thomas, who's my co-founder. We actually grew up in the countryside in Sweden. which you can imagine it's far to any store. And, where I grew up, the latest store closed down in 1986. So if my family wanted to buy a liter of milk, we needed to get into the car and drive for an hour. But even apart from the convenience, a village store is so much more than a store. It's a place where you meet your neighbors and you chat about the news. So you could compare it to the watering hole in the dawn of humanity. And, they are really, really important. Like, by bringing the corner store to small villages and suburbs, we bring more than convenience. We bring a place for people to meet, and we bring life. And that is our vision.
Now, you're speaking to me today from a coffee shop in Stockholm, and we're going to have people listening to our conversation all over the world. So can you share with me some of the cities where listeners might have actually seen a Moby Mart, or where they could be one coming soon?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, we have 5 stores operational in Shanghai. And that is the only city that we're operational in at this moment. I can't really say where we will be soon, but I can say that we're in negotiations with some bigger clients, and we hope to come to Europe soon.
I've got to ask, how did you go from Sweden to China? Is there anything about that relationship you can tell me about?
Yeah, we actually had something called Willie's Cafe a few years back. Which you talked about before, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And, with Willys, we had a really awesome team in Shanghai, and we had our production in Shanghai and so on. So that was just sort of a natural step, since Moby Mart was originally a subsidiary of Willys.
So from a business point of view, if somebody reads all about it and decides to invest in their very own Moby Mart, can you talk me through the process of how they could order one, what they get for their money, and also what kind of support they would get moving forward?
Okay, yeah. Well, so first of all, you just order it with us. It costs $25,000, the Moby PSI. And basically, it can be flat packed or shipped as it is. And you get it with the whole system and the app. And once you get it, you just stock it up. You enter the products into the app and start selling. So it's like everything is done via the cloud system. It's pretty straightforward, actually.
And from the customer's point of view, what's the retail experience like? Just for everyone listening, what should they expect if they were to go in? How they would enter the mart and how they would purchase things?
Yeah. Okay. So imagine it's 11 p.m. and you're at home and you suddenly and desperately need a liter of milk for your White Russian. I'm
glad you added White Russian into there. I thought, why would I want milk at 11 o'clock? But now it all makes sense.
Well, it happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay, so you open the app and then you find the closest Moby using the map. And you find one 50 yards away. You put on your coat and head out. And when you get there, you unlock it by opening the app and sliding the phone over the door. You take your milk and your cereals maybe, and then you scan them and then you exit. And it is that easy. Somewhere in cyberspace, your pre-registered card is automatically charged with a cost. And 10 minutes later, you sit in front of the fireplace with your White Russian. 1 liter White Russian.
Oh, you've sold me on as soon as you mentioned White Russian there. But a question I've got to ask, of course, in Stockholm, it's a beautiful country, beautiful part of the world. But in some cities and some inner areas, there is problems around crime. So I've got to ask, have you had any challenges around crime when people can get in and essentially could just take everything from there? Or is it all traced back to them so they can't do that?
Well, yeah, it's a very good question. And we get it a lot, actually. Or, well, it's natural. Well, first of all, let me just mention that, there have been a few big changes in retail. When we could just talk about when people could actually enter a store the first time and put something in their own cart, as opposed to buying something over the counter. And that was everybody was thinking that this would mean a lot of theft.
Yeah.
So it's I think whenever it comes to some kind of change, people are worried. But actually, in our store, we have a Moby Alpha that's been operational for the past 1.5 years, and it has a really low theft rate, lower than industry average. And I can think of many reasons why it is like that. But well, first of all, we have a system that suggests suspicious behaviors. So, and we don't only use scanning; we use multiple sensory input. So we, you probably know something about these kinds of technologies that we use in stuffless retail. So it's scanning in camera and RFID, and then we have shelf sensors, and we use all of these. So that is part of our security system. But then there's something else also that I think could be mentioned, and it comes down to sociology. It's just like, when we talked to an early investor in Airbnb, and he said that nobody wanted to invest in Airbnb because everybody would just steal anything in the apartments. But, it's just like when you enter a hotel, you give them your credit card and you go in and you're allowed to walk around. And it would be really strange if the staff kept looking over your shoulder to see that you didn't take the cutlery. And it works the same way with Moby. So you enter the store and you have your credit card registered in the app. And then you're a member and you're free to enter the store.
It's funny you should mention a few of the examples you used. I remember the first time I stayed in an Airbnb, and my parents said, "But anybody could let themselves in the night or watch you," and all this. But I think the 24-hour news channels make us think that the world is this big nasty place. But there are more good people than bad people in the world, aren't there?
Yeah, so I hope so.
So a self-driving mobile convenience store that comes to customers 24 hours a day with no lines and no human interaction does sound like the coolest thing in the world to me, especially at 11 p.m. when I want my White Russian. But what are the biggest challenges and opportunities for Moby-Mart at the moment?
Well, the biggest challenges at the moment is probably to find the right partners and finding places to put it, which is actually funny because we are also we have another solution which is makes it possible for us to put a Moby anywhere by placing it on wheels. So we have a solution already at hand, but of course we're hoping to find some better solutions to that. And opportunities, well, of course we can mass produce them, and they are quite cheap actually. It's a really good price, and we can roll 100 out in half a year now if we get the right funding, which is why we're going to do an A round later this summer.
So what kind of feedback have you received, both from people that own a Moby-Mart and equally people that have actually used them? Do you get to hear any feedback or have any feedback stories you could share with me?
Yes, sure. We've tested it at a university in Shanghai called the Hefei University. And as a matter of fact, the people that are using it there, they are really, they're really tech savvy. So they seem to use it almost daily. A lot of them, 6-8% of them use it daily, which is really interesting because it feels to us as if they are they've adapted to that kind of shopping much quicker than we thought. But it will be really interesting to see if that is working the same way in Europe.
And a university sounds like the absolutely perfect place to put something like that. And I would also imagine, because it looks incredibly cool, it would also help spread the word quite quickly. Because if I was at university and I saw something like this and I'm passionate about tech, first thing I want to do is share that on Instagram. Are you getting people doing like that in Shanghai as well?
Yeah, a few. But, we're still a very small company. We'll see. We hope to change that.
So what is your grand vision for Moby-Mart? Like you say, you're a very young company. You've got a lot to do yet, and you're searching for partners and extra funding. But things are moving along really well. But where do you want to get to? Where do you see as Moby-Mart in, let's say, 5 years?
Well, what would be really amazing is to have stores in every major city and also to start placing them in remote areas and in developing countries.
So if we do have anyone listening that wants to find out a little bit more information, maybe watch a video as well, just to visualize what they look like, or even just contact a member of your team if they've got any questions. What's the best way of doing that and staying up to date with everything that you're doing at Moby-Mart?
Okay, yeah, you could just visit the website. It's www.themobymart.com, or you could contact me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I'm Hannah Massetti.
Cool. Well, I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. But I absolutely love what you're doing here, especially not just for the big city side of things, but like you said, it's the remote areas that there aren't any shops anymore. And like I say, 11 p.m. at night, you have a snack attack or you just want some essential items, to be able to just to walk down there and get your hands on it is incredibly cool. And equally from a business point of view, if you can just have one, store it, and everything looks after itself, it just seems incredibly cool concept. But more than anything, just a big thank you for coming on and sharing that with me and your plans for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neil. Have a nice day.
When I first read about Moby, it reminded me of something from Blade Runner. Very futuristic and very cool. And it can be hard for you to understand exactly what it looks like. So if you go over to techblogwriter.co.uk, go to podcasts, look for the blog post that accompanies this episode, and I'll post a video of the Moby Mart so you can see exactly what it looks like. And I must admit, my cynical side straight away said, incredibly cool, but what about thieves? Maybe I live in the wrong side of town here in the UK, but that was the first thought that I had. But Moby says that its test stores have recorded less than 0.1% shrinking, which is theft, compared to an industry standard of 1 to 2%. But if the operator notices something is amiss, the pod's built-in Sonos speaker system can be accessed remotely to warn off any would-be thieves. And sensors can also be used to regulate the temperature, ensuring a pleasant shopping experience for everyone. But does the idea of a staff-free convenience store off the grid with a PSI standalone retail pod sound like your idea of tech heaven or tech hell? And things like this really do divide public opinion, but in an age where we all just want to get what we want with minimal fuss, I do think that's changing because any pain points are just being removed by technology. But that's my opinion. Let me throw this one over to you. Share with me your observations, your opinions, by simply sending me a quick email to techblogwriter@outlook.com. And as long as it's not from an auto do not reply inbox, I will reply to you. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this one. But I'm afraid it's time for me to go now. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.